Honourable Nick Smith.
Mr Chairman, the fact that that was the very first speech on the substance of the bill and amounted to 10 minutes of personal denigration speaks volumes about the differences between this side of the House advocating the national interest for our country and an opposition that is more interested in playing personality politics and looking after their Aussie union mates than looking after what's important for our country. Let's go to the core of what these clauses are about. And it's a very simple issue, this. Is the law clear about whether people working in the film industry are contractors or employees? I think this House should agree that having certainty about that is actually in everybody's interests. Well, let's see what actually happened in the court, because the Employment Relations Authority decided that a person was a contractor. When the same case went to the employment court, they said no, they're an employee. And then when the matter went to the Court of Appeal, we got a different decision again, a reinforcement that the person was a contractor, and then the Supreme Court decided that they were an employee. So here we have 4 judicial bodies, each coming to 2 different conclusions. And that, in my view, makes it absolutely plain to this Parliament that the law is not clear, and the right thing in the national interest is that we make it clear with this bill. Now, members opposite have said and made all sorts of extravagant claims about Warner Brothers and the like. You know who's really pulling the strings here is the Aussie unions. It's all very well for members opposite to stand up and to make extravagant claims when we're acting in the national interest. I challenge members opposite. Who opposite agrees with Helen Kelly's, the head of the CTU's, description of Sir Peter Jackson, one of the great New Zealanders, a man who has done more for the film industry, and the other side describes him as a spoilt brat. A spoilt brat. And which of the members opposite disagree with Helen Kelly? Not one. You see, members opposite, and it speaks volumes about the differences in culture and values between this government and that side. You see, successful New Zealanders, those that are creating jobs and wealth and opportunities for young people, are despised by people opposite and write them off as a spoiled brat. We on this side of the House are proud to stand behind Sir Peter Jackson, his success, the jobs that he will create, and the way in which he has promoted successfully our country. And then we've had the arguments from members opposite. There should be absolutely no special treatment in defining who are contractors in employment law. That's what members have argued. Well, that's pretty interesting, Mr Chairman, because in the very employment law they passed, they said, when it comes to share milkers, we're going to have a specific clause. Or when it comes to real estate agents, Labor says no, we're going to have a specific clause. So my challenge to members opposite, where is your principles? If you are really absolutes and that you shall not have any definition that differentiates different industries, why did every member of the Labor Party vote for an Employment Relations Act that specifically differentiates in working through who is a contractor and who is an employee for share milkers and also for those in the real estate industry? Can I note another pathetic argument? This was one that I really found entertaining. Damien O'Connor got to his feet and said that it was absolutely disgraceful that when Warner Brothers executives came to New Zealand, they were transported by the government's cars. Now, wasn't that awful? Didn't that show us? Now, the next speech came up. The next speech, Grant Robertson, said that, the government's real fault was that we hadn't had a $100,000 booze-up functionless Los Angeles to look after the executives. I would love a member opposite to please explain the logic as to somehow one is immoral and one is right, Mr. Chairman.
You're seeking a call.
Mr. Chairman.
Honourable Nick Smith.
Mr. Chairman, the last point that I wish to make is really about what this issue goes to the core in terms of some of the arguments about sovereignty. Because the real sovereignty argument here, are we going to allow New Zealanders' jobs and opportunities to be held to ransom by an Aussie union? Because just as the editorial in the Dominion says this morning, this government would not be doing anything in this space if it was not for the botched union attempts to blackmail the production of The Hobbit in New Zealand. And I say, well, the members opposite say that's rubbish. Well, if that is the case, what changed? What changed from June? Well, will I ask the member who's chipping in? Does he support the call by the Aussie Actors Union for a boycott on The Hobbit? They are silent. Isn't it interesting that they have no view? My view, it was a disgraceful attempt by an Aussie union to disadvantage New Zealand's most important film industry. And I say this bill that Kate Wilkinson has brought to this House is about the national interest, about doing the right thing for New Zealand jobs, doing the right thing for New Zealand film industry. I wish to make one last point, and it's this. Members opposite think the certainty argument doesn't matter. Well, I would just simply like to draw attention to another case before the courts with respect to idea services. Now, in this particular case, people went into an employment relationship and the courts later said no, that was misinterpreted, both employees and the employer, in that case idea services, working in a crucial area of providing support for those New Zealanders that need special care. And the courts have come to a decision that will cost idea services, changing what everybody thought, by $500 million. $500 million. And I say, why would?
Point of order.
Why would in the film industry?
Point of order. Honourable Trevor Mallon.
Mr. Chairman, 2 points. One, I know it's unusual for an opposition member to go to width of debate, but Sir, the IHC and the film industry are two quite different areas, but probably more importantly, I think as the member is aware, this is a case on which a hearing is currently being held and a decision has not yet been issued. And I think the Honourable Doctor, or the Right Honourable Doctor, the Speaker, has ruled on that matter pretty carefully recently.
Yeah, on the first point, this has been a much broader ranging debate than I'm comfortable with, and I'm not sure there's been any greater transgression with the material that the Honourable Dr Nick Smith has introduced than some other members. On the second point about a matter before a hearing, I'm not aware, but if in fact this matter is sub judice, the member ought not to refer to the specifics of the case.
My point is very clear, and that is that uncertainty about employment law that down the track can result in hundreds of millions of dollars of cost is an investment killer. And that is why this Parliament has a duty to provide certainty in employment law, certainty for employees, certainty for employers, and that is exactly what the Minister is attempting to achieve. It is in the national interest, it is the right thing to do, and if there is any skullduggery going on here, it's the way in which Aussie unions have tried to disrupt the growth of a very important New Zealand film industry.
Mr. Chair.